might. Now, might, there's different ways to do might. There's adding balango or bana, or balango with your or do. Now, the difference is that if you just use balango or bana balango, then you use the secondary form of the verb. Whereas if you're not sure of the secondary form of the verb, then you can use balango your or balango do. Now, you might notice that I've said your instead of euro, and that's purely because in jumbo poingo it would be your, in gupa poingo it would be euro, and I use jumbo poingo. So if we look at this, the most useful one and the one that I'll probably use more often than not would be, for example, she might break it or he might break it. Nai balango yor bakmaram. Again, you might notice that instead of saying bakmarama, I've said bakmaram, and that's purely because in jumbo poingo it's bakmaram. If you're wondering what on earth does it mean by primary and secondary, and I'll need to do a more comprehensive video on this, but by primary and secondary, all of the different verbs, for example, come in have different forms. So using the trusty reference book, on here it has all the different verb groups, and that they're grouped depending on the ending of the verb. So for example, if we've got wandiri, which is the first form, primary form, secondary form is wandi, third form is wandina, and the fourth form is wandinya. Alright, and so what you can do, and you'll, trust me, eventually get used to doing, is thinking, oh, it ends in a on, and so then if I need the secondary form, which is used for quite a few different suffixes and forms of speech, for example, we're talking about might, but it's also used in when you're doing a command, then you need to end in yuru. So be quiet, mukton, muktoro, muktorona, muktona. And you just, I guess, get used to it and have that as part of your understanding, that when you hear a word in context, for example, you might hear the word muktoro and be like, oh, I don't know that word, but then think to yourself, well, I know it ends in that ending there, thor, so I think, well, maybe it's a secondary form of the primary verb, which is the mukton, and so you might be like, well, I know mukton. So just again on what I'm actually looking at today is that for looking at might, we can use, if we know what the secondary form of the verb is, we can use balango. So if I want to say he might take it, nai balango yor. If we know, so just thinking to ourselves, well, it ends in the yor. If we're thinking what the primary form is, well, it'd be end in yun. So they've got their example down here as well of he might take it using the primary form. Nai balango yor jiao yon. Nai balango do jiao yon. That's just he might take it. So it's quite useful knowing how to say something might be, could be. So you can move away from just simple sentences and saying definite statements.